So Dwight Barnes, tell us a little something about yourself. You know,
Uh,
your what made you become a writer, and about your upbringing, your education, or some experiences in life that you may have had.
Whoa. Where should I start? Um,
Where were you
I,
born?
I was born in Pontiac, Michigan. I was born right here. I'm homegrown. Uh, I had what I consider an excellent childhood. And I don't mean that in the sense that we had everything that we wanted and my parents could afford to give us what all of our little wants, our little whims, and everything. Actually, we were very poor, uh, and there were a lot of things that we didn't have. There were a lot of things that my parents couldn't afford to get us. So as kids, we had to. A lot of times, we just made whatever whatever we played with. We made it. We made scooters. We invented games. We shot marbles. Um, I mean, we didn't even know we were poor because everybody around us. I mean, nobody around us had any more than we had. Um, so we didn't really know we were poor. We didn't know there was such a place as across 8 Mile. We didn't know anything about suburbs. We didn't know anything about Livonia or Madison Heights or Birmingham or any of that. Our universe was contained and confined to the early part of my life. It was Mount Elliott, and Larned. It was the east side. And but I had great parents. I had a mother that was loving and very affectionate and very warm, very spiritual, and she provided that for us. My dad, um, who lacked spirituality, but in terms of what defines a man, I think he qualified. My dad was a man that ruled his house. If he said no, it was no. If he said yes, it was yes. If he ever lied to me, I don't remember it. He was always where he should be. The people around us, everybody that knew him, respected him. I think the main thing, if I would be doing my dad an injustice to try to describe him and leave this part out. He loved his wife. He the love he had for my mother is I won't even attempt to try to describe it, but we grew up with this love story in front of us. He never disrespected her. I never heard him raise his voice to my mom. Uh, Even though he didn't have much materially or money on everything, I think that if my mom had asked him for the moon, my dad would have found a rope somewhere and been out there trying to rope it and bring it down. And I think that's the most important asset that he gave me and my brothers. He taught us how to treat our wives. He taught us how to love our wives, how to respect our wives.
So do you think that's a part of his spirit? Not spiritual, but more or less, not spiritual in the sense of religion, but in the sense of the makeup of the man internally.
Uh, to be honest now, in terms of the individual himself, I never really knew my father. I
Mm-hmm.
never really knew him, even though he was in the house all the time. And he was there. He was like a closed book. He never talked about himself. He never talked to me about his childhood or growing up or anything. He never gave me any kind of insight into who he was or any of that. So a lot of things about my dad I really didn't know. Um, my father, he was angry about a lot of things, and understandably so. My dad had one eye. He had a third grade education. Okay, and at that time, black was a big part of any challenge for a black man. And he was a chronic asthmatic. And he was allergic to everything. When he was a teenager, working down in Georgia, he was working on a Coca-Cola delivery truck. And you know how hot it gets in the South. And it used to be, I don't know, it was something about the formula of Coke, like if it got hot and you shook it, it was a good chance the bottle would just explode. So they were unloading cases of Coca-Cola, and he slammed it down. And I guess with the effervescence inside the bottle, or the gases or whatever, and him slamming it, the bottle busted, and it took his eye out. Well, him having only a third grade Southern education, while he was in the hospital, some people came from Coca-Cola and had him sign some papers that he thought were about paying for his hospitalization and some kind of compensation and all that. But actually, they were things that exonerated Coca-Cola from any responsibility, any financial responsibility at all. And so he felt he was angry about that. He later on in life he got a job at Chrysler, and he thought that his luck was changing, things were going to turn around for him. But he was working on the line one day and collapsed, and they had to rush him to the hospital. Well, as a result of that, they found out that he had asthma, and it was the atmosphere inside of the plant that was triggering the asthma attack. So within 2 days he was fired. So he was just angry. He was bitter about, I don't know what happened to him in the South in terms of the Jim Crow, you know, the racism and the bigotry. I don't know what he went through with that, but whatever it was, it made him very, very bitter. So I really didn't get to know him. I know this, that he didn't. So many things had failed him that I guess along the way that he had trusted in or relied in, that I think by the time that I knew him, by the time I came along, he didn't trust anything or anyone. He didn't believe in anything really or anyone. So, but he just had this love for my mother. It was something. Because throughout everything that he went through, all the disappointments and everything, my mother was right there with him. She was right there with him. And I think because of her commitment and her love for him, and her stickability and her saying, no, we're going to do this together. Whatever happens, we're going to deal with it together. I think out of that, he just developed this love and appreciation for her.
So what do you think your mother gave you? What's the most important thing you think that your mother
Spirituality. Spirituality. Our knowledge of salvation and holiness and faith and giving us a concept of God and who he was very early on, that came from my mother. My grandfather was an old Church of God country preacher. A man of excellent character. He was just a stand-up guy. I mean, I would see him coming down the street. I never saw him when he didn't have a Bible in his hand. Never. He carried that Bible with him everywhere he went. And his bearing, there was just something about him. You could just tell that, you know, this was a spiritual man. That there was more to him than just what you saw. And that was passed down to my mom, and my mom passed it on to us. And that was the biggest thing, that the best. My parents didn't leave us anything. Materially, financially, they left us. As far as that went, they didn't leave us with anything. But I would have gladly traded what they did leave us for any of that stuff, for any of the material stuff. I would have rather have what I have, because this, the currency that they did leave us has eternal weight and value. the currency of this world is only good for here. You can only spend it here. But what she gave us, not only is the currency good here, it's good in the hereafter. And I think that that's the greatest and the best gift that she could have left us.
So, what was school life like for you? You can take any part, any.
I was a terrible student.
Okay.
I was a terrible student. It wasn't that I was not bright enough or any of that, because I was. I just didn't try. School, I always wanted to be somewhere else. And almost all my teachers made a fatal mistake in terms of my education. They always put me in the row that was closest to the window. So, bad idea, bad decision. So, while they were teaching whatever they were teaching, for the most part, I was looking out the window. I was always somewhere else. And so, a lot of times, I would just kind of blow off the first couple of card markings. But when it came down to the time where it was to pass to the grade, I would do just enough so I wouldn't flunk. I wouldn't flunk the grade. But I never really applied myself because my head was never really in the classroom. But what happened is, and that had worked for me. And when I got to the 6th grade, I was always goofing off and stuff. I wasn't a bad kid at all. I mean, I was but I just didn't apply myself. So this semester, I had done this so many times till I did the same thing. I just kind of blew off the first couple of card markers. And I would always, on the third card marking, I always do just enough. Even if I got by on D's, I didn't care as long as I went to the next grade. Well, this time I waited too late. And they flunked me. And that hit me like a bowling ball in the solar plexus. I was devastated. Because I had done this so many times. And to see my classmates go on to the next grade and me have to remain behind, and then the half grade behind me come in and I'm sitting there when I should be going on, it just had a devastating impact. So that, and it was the time when we got out of school for summer vacation. Well, summer vacation didn't mean anything to me that year because the only thing I could think about was going back to school because it was just me. I just had something to prove to myself. I felt like I let myself down. I don't know how I processed it, but I know one thing. The only thing that I could think about that whole semester, whole summer vacation, was going back to school. I wanted to go back to school. So, and it was the first and only time in my life when I've ever felt like that. But when school started that next year, I was a different student. Because the sting of failing, of flunking, when I knew that I shouldn't have, that I had let myself down, that stayed with me and it turned into motivation. So after that I became a better student, not a great student by any means. I still kind of goofed off and everything. But the one thing I did do, I didn't let myself get so close to the edge till, there was any chance of that happening again.
So let me ask you this. What would you say, good or bad, high or low, what was the most significant things that stick with you as an adult, or moments?
The most significant thing? The thing that had the greatest impact on me, or whatever?
Yeah.
Actually, it was the spiritual aspects of my life. Like a lot of people and everything, when I became an adult, of course, I just started doing whatever I wanted to do. I just whatever I wanted to do. There was really no discipline. You know, I didn't set any boundaries or goals or anything for myself. I just did whatever I wanted to do. You know, whatever my appetites called for. But on the inside, or when I got to myself, I always knew that spiritually I wasn't where I should be. And I always knew that my life didn't reflect what my parents had put in me, what they had instilled in me. I always knew that I was going against that. And I always knew that what they gave me was really right. And it was really the direction I should have been heading in. So that was the thing. That gnawed at me and gnawed at me for years and years. That gnawed at me. And, I overrode it. I ignored it, and, I just... I just, did what I wanted to do, so that was the thing. That just kept gnawing at me and kept gnawing at me. So it was always the spiritual aspects of my life. I knew that it was important I knew I needed to change my life. I knew I needed to do something different than what I was doing. I knew that the path that I was on was counterproductive, and if I stayed on it, I wouldn't be happy about where I was going to end up, and so that was probably the predominant thing that just that was the greatest impact, getting myself together spiritually, getting that aspect of my life right.
And when did you realize that you had the gift of writing?
Well, I don't know if I ever realized that I had the gift of writing. Early on, I started writing in my 20s, but it would just be things. I would write about things that left an impression on me. If something happened or whatever, and it impressed me in some way, I might write a little something about that, or I might even write a poem around whatever it was. And really, that's how it started off. I just started at that time. I think people were more so into poetry than they are now, and so I would just write poems about things that impressed me in some way or inspired me. And it started from there. Then I started writing little short stories just for my own amusement. I wasn't trying to have anything published, or I didn't have any aspirations to go any farther than that. I would just write about things that impacted me in some way. And so I didn't really see myself as having the gift of writing. I didn't see that. And and as I got older, I started writing a little bit more seriously, but never still with the thought in mind of having anything published. It was just for me. I would write it and then I'd take it and stick it somewhere. And I'm sure around here right now I've got things that I wrote about years ago and just tucked them away. But the lightning tree, I believe that was exactly what I was supposed to do at that time in my life. I believe that wasn't just something that happened. I think that all the times that I was writing those little things, God was actually preparing me for the time when I would sit down and write the lightning tree, when He would give me that inspiration, when He would use me to that end. And I think without me ever realizing or even considering that this might become something that I would be serious about at some point, I think God was grooming me and preparing me for the time when I would sit down and write the lightning tree.
So do you have any other passions or gifts or things that you truly feel motivated to do? Or
well, actually, Jerry. I started off as a kid. Me and I have two brothers, and well, I have one now. We lost one here a few weeks ago, but we were all gifted artists. And my first passion was art. When I was in, I think it was when I was in elementary school. My mom actually got a job working at the Detroit Institute of Arts, and I would just spend so much time down there absorbing the artwork of those great artists, and their techniques, how they use color, and I would just walk through the galleries and just spend hours absorbing that and taking that all in, and then I'd go home. And what I would do is I would go down to the gift shop downstairs in the basement, and I would buy postcards with some of those great works that they would put on the postcard, right? And I would go home and get my my drawing equipment out, get my stuff out, and I would try to draw them. And that was my first passion, art. But at that time, I've never had any art lessons. No one has ever taken out time to really just give me art lessons or give me structure or give me some discipline, give me the discipline I needed. I probably would have made a really good artist, because I'm not bad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not bad. But that was my first passion.
Okay. So,
And there are several other things that
mm-hmm.
that I can do.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite as gifted with them as I am with art and now with writing. But yeah, basically, I'm one of the things I'm passionate about. I'm a collector. I love to collect things. I just like collecting. I like the whole going to these little dingy shops and resale stores and antique stores and all that kind of stuff, looking for whatever it is I'm looking for. The people that you meet, I like all that, because you can meet really interesting people. So that's one of my passions is collecting.
So, what would you say to young men and women who probably haven't discovered themselves, and like you talked about earlier, are just out there doing whatever?
I would say this, and I've said this many times before, and it's true. Passion. Find your passion. Put forth the effort and the energy to find your passion. Passion will save a person's life if you're passionate enough. A lot of these guys that are making these ridiculous salaries that plays in the play for in the NFL, in the NBA, and on these baseball teams and everything, they grew up in the projects. They grew up in conditions far less than ideal. And they had to overcome, but it was their passion for the game. It was their passion for whatever it was, whether it was art or music, or basketball, baseball, football, whatever it was their passion that got them where they are. When a lot of other kids were going out smoking weed or doing the drug thing, or running up and down the street or whatever, or getting into trouble, making bad choices, it was their passion that kept them focused. I'm going to go shoot me some hoops. I want to improve my game. I want to be as good as Jordan. I want to be as good as Dr. J. I want to be good. So find your passion. When you really don't know what you want to do with your life, you really don't know, and you're just kind of lost in a way, just kind of out there. Find your passion. Find that thing that really that you get excited about, that motivates you, that thing that you when you get up in the morning, you're looking forward to doing it. Find that, because I found over the course of my life that people that lack passion never really have a clear direction in life. They never really get it. They're over here. They're over there. They're doing this. They're doing that. They're involved in this. And a lot of times, when you don't have a clear direction, when you lack the passion, you end up making the wrong choices. You end up going down the wrong path because you're looking for something and you don't know where it is. And so a lot of times, because you're looking for it, you look for it sometimes in the wrong places and in the wrong things and in the wrong company. So I would say, find your passion. And if you can't identify your passion, if you can't define that thing yourself, find something and get passionate about it. Find something that you just like or that you might have, that you think you might be interested in, and submerge yourself in that. Because you can become passionate about things without that just being the passion that you were born with.
Okay. So you're a successful writer, and you're an artist, and a very good speaker. What would you want your greats to see about your life or to know about your life?
I have grandkids now,
What would you want their grandkids to know
about me? First, that I was a spiritual person. My primary desire in life is to make my life count for something, to leave something behind, to impact the world in some positive way, to do what I can to help where I can, to contribute in any way that I can. And here's the thing. Life isn't just about acquiring and getting and accumulating and having. It's not about climbing that corporate ladder. It's not about amassing a fortune or having that big house or living in this neighborhood or hanging out in this social circle. All that has its place, and I'm not speaking against that. You know, I think you should want to live comfortably, and I think you should want to enjoy some of the creature comforts that are out here for us to enjoy. But it's not so much about the acquiring and the getting. It's what you become, who you become in the process. While you're doing this, who do you become? What do you become? What are your values? What are your priorities? You know, what is your life based on? Because all of our life, everybody should have a foundation. Your life should be based on something solid, something of substance, something that has some weight to it. And I think this is what the message I would want to pass on. Be all you can be. Go far as your talents and your gifts and abilities, and God will allow you to go. Go as far as you can go. Exhaust all your resources. Be the best that you can be. But wherever you go and whatever it is that you do, make God a part of your life. Don't leave out the spiritual aspects and implications, because the truth of the matter is, without Him, we can do nothing. We can do nothing. And none of us made ourselves. Whatever it is that you can do, whatever your gift, whatever your attributes, whatever your abilities, whatever your talents, keep in mind, you did not give them to yourself. It is a gift from God. You wouldn't even have it had he not endowed you with it. So keep that in mind, that we have an obligation to him to use those gifts and talent. Well, you can always use them to better your condition, your circumstances. You can always use them to improve the quality of your life. But we owe a certain amount of that to him, to use to glorify him in some way, and to give back, to show some appreciation. So that's what I would say, and that's what I would want to be remembered for. Not just for the lightning tree, or not just for any other thing, but the fact that my priorities, my spiritual priorities, my spiritual values were set, and they were in the right place, and they, my focus, as far as that goes, what's essential and what's really important in life, that my focus was right on point.
So, what would Dwight Barnes present say to Dwight Barnes of the future?
Well, in a culture where, and I had someone tell me this some years ago. They said to me, well, you know that the older you get, the less useful you become. And eventually, you outlive your usefulness. And the only thing that you can do is sit on the front porch and watch the parade of life go past. And now it becomes, it's for the young. You've lived your life, there's nothing else for you to do but just sit there and just vegetate. Well, I don't believe that. I believe that God intended for us to be useful as long as we have breath in our bodies. I think that it's all about perspective. It's how you look at aging. If you buy into that philosophy and everything, well, you're going to do exactly what the culture is saying that you should do because you've reached this age. Sit down somewhere and let the young. But if you can get to the reality that we should never stop learning, we should never stop asking questions or being inquisitive or being curious about life and about different things. We should never get to a place in life where we figure that we have all the knowledge that we can acquire, or we know all there is to know. We don't, and if we live to be 1,000, we would never get to that place. Stay curious. Keep asking questions. Keep acquiring new knowledge and new information. Talk to people, because it is in the exchange of information that we grow and that we evolve. It's in the accepting new ideas and new opinions and different ways of looking at things that expands us as individuals. And we can do that as long as we're alive. I think one of the tragedies is, and particularly in this culture, is that we buy into that worldview that, well, I can't say it's a worldview, because some other cultures, they revere and respect their elders, and they esteem them, and they value their life experience, they value their wisdom, they value the knowledge that they have to pass on. But in this culture in particular, that's not so. Don't buy into that. Don't, and I would say that to myself, and I remind myself of that. I'm always curious. I love information. I'm always looking for knowledge. I'm always seeking wisdom, from whatever means, wherever I can get it from. I don't rule anything or anybody out. Some of the things that, some of the wisdoms and truths and knowledge that I carry with me to this day. I got from an alcoholic in front of the liquor store. From a derelict somewhere, or I just picked it up from because you never know what source wisdom will or can come from. So don't rule anything or anybody out. Stay curious, keep an open mind. Listen to what people have to say. If you take the time out to talk to them, then listen, because you never know where that nugget that's going to carry you, that you're going to use for the rest of your life, is going to come from. So I would say to myself, Dwight, never stop growing, never stop evolving, never stop becoming. Never stop being curious. Never stop being inquisitive. Never stop asking questions. Never stop opening your mind to new ideas and new possibilities. And that's what I would say to the Dwight now, to the Dwight that I am in the process of becoming.
So do you think that seniors spend too much time reflecting on their past life instead of looking forward? Or...
Well, I think at the point where your life peaks, and by that I mean when you really buy into, well, I'm old now, and I've lived my life, and so now I'm just old, and I've outlived my usefulness. I think all you have is the past. That's why they spend so much time talking about it. You can always tell when somebody's gotten to that point, because every time you talk to them, it's going to be in retrospect. It's going to be in reflections. So you know that person, as far as growth and development, all that, they're not going any farther than they are right now. Because even when you're not talking to them, even when they're in their quiet time or when they're sitting around, and it's all about reflections. It's all about what happened 25 years ago and everything. That's okay, because memories become precious as you get older. Because a lot of times we lose those people and those relationships in our lives that we once had, and the time comes when all we have is the memory of that person, and that's okay, because those relationships were precious to us, and in the memories we keep that person with us. That person is still very much a part of our life, and that part's okay. But like I said, don't buy into the attitude or the philosophy or the thinking that because I'm 65 or I'm 70, that all I have, the best of my years are behind me, because that's only true if you believe it. Now, if you believe it, it's true. The scriptures say, whatsoever a man thinketh, so is he. And my mom used to say that a man cannot rise above his own thinking. We can only go as far as our thinking can take us. So if that's how you see yourself, if you see yourself as a non-functioning part, if you see yourself as a part that's antiquated and has outlived you, then even if it's not true in reality, it's true to you. And I can assure you that you will go no farther. But if you see yourself as long as I'm alive, I can continue to grow. I can continue to contribute. I'm 73. I'm 73, and I just wrote a book. But it's in part because I don't buy into that philosophy. Because if I bought into that philosophy, I would say to myself, man, you know what? I wish I had written that book. I wanted to write a book, and I just never did. It's too late now. The ship has sailed, the train has left the station, and like that. But because I don't buy into that philosophy, so I'm just saying, I think that's a tragedy, and I think that's a big mistake that a lot of seniors make. They in their thinking, they get to the place where they see themselves as a non-functioning part.
So tell me, we're human beings with many facets, and what I would like to know is, what have you discovered about yourself in recent times that you didn't know before?
Well, let's see. Well, since I've been working on, it took me 2.5 years to write The Lightning Tree. Because I don't do anything with technology, I actually wrote it. I wrote it with a pen and paper. I don't type, and I guess you could say I'm resistant to technology. I don't do anything on the computer. So I had to write it. And a lot of times I would make mistakes. I would get almost done with a page and realize I left a word out or a sentence that was vital to the message I was trying to send or the statement I was trying to make. So I'd have to write the whole page over again. And sometimes I'd have to write, in order for it to fit back into the manuscript, I'd have to write 2 or 3 pages over again in order for it to fit into the manuscript. And sometimes I would write and get 2 pages past what I wrote and look at it and realize, okay, I don't like this. So then I'd have to go back and write what I wanted it to say, but it wouldn't fit to what was already written, so I'd have to write the whole thing. But the one thing that I found out about myself, or I acquired, was patience. The one thing that it did for me, I had no choice but to be patient. I had no choice. Because in order to put out a quality manuscript, or whatever it is that you're doing, a quality product, you can't rush it. You got to take the time. You got to invest yourself into it. You have to give it, you really have to submerge yourself into it. You really have to give it the best that you've got. And so, and that too was God helping me, because that was the one thing I didn't have. But, and I think that's the one thing that most people don't have, especially in this culture, in this fast food throwaway culture that we live in. We want what we want, like right now. We want it right now, and that's why everything is moving like at the speed of light in this culture, and particularly now, because that's the demand. People want it right now. People don't want to wait. So, when you hear about all these megabytes and these mega gigs where, the technology gets it done right away, or it gives you, it just zips you through, it's because we lack the patience. In relationships, that's why a lot of times relationships fail. We don't have the patience to invest in the other person, or to hear what they're really saying, or try to see it from their perspective or their point of view. I don't have the patience for all that. I'm just focused on how it's impacted me, how I feel, and that's it. So patience, I think, out of this, I have become a more patient person. When my wife is talking now, I think if she were here, she would agree that I'm a better listener now, and I really take time to process what it is she's saying, and really try to feel where she's coming from, not just get hung up on my perspective or how I'm feeling. But patience has taught me that. Patience has given me that. And that's an excellent attribute, because a lot of other excellent attributes are a byproduct of patience. So I think that's here lately. I think that's something that has really been a major part of my life, becoming a more patient person.